Man, Diego Pavia proved Saturday that he is the leader that this team needs.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Today, we're going to look back at Vandy's near double overtime win at Missouri. They fell just short. But, some of the things they need to clean up, the penalties, the big plays on defense. But overall, I thought the team, they fought hard, and they have plenty to be proud of. More so, Diego Pavia proved that he is indeed the leader that this team needs, and he proved that on Saturday. And honestly, lots of, lost in all of the disappointment from losing in the form in which Vandy lost in, which was a double overtime shank. I think lost in all of that is all the good things that happened with this team. I mean, let's be honest with you, man. This team really could have gone in the tank, and they didn't. They could have gone into the tank after last weekend because last weekend we talked about it. It was not good. There wasn't a whole lot of great things from that game. But Diego Pavia, again, I thought was, he put his stamp on this game. He said leading up to this game that this is what he came to Vandy for, to play in games like this. And now you see why. That dude's a gamer, man. And that's one of the things we learned, man. And look, we learned this. We learned that Diego Pavia is a baller. He's a gamer. He's a leader. He's the leader that this team needs. All right. You can see in this picture right here on this graphic. This is in overtime. This was on third down, and he leapt over a defender, almost got actually, I think he did get the first down on this particular scramble, but just plays like this. I mean, you see how dirty he is. You see his knees are all bloody, and it just the will to make this play and the will to get his team in the end zone is what this team feeds off of, right? And then also we're going to talk about later, defense had a solid game plan. They just need to limit the big plays, and penalties are freaking killers. But going back to Diego Pavia, I mean, I thought that he did a really good job of leading this offense. I mean, the very first touchdown was a 65-yard strike to Joseph McVay. First catch as a Commodore, a 65-yard bomb on the road at Missouri to put Vandy up early 7-0. And Diego Pavia had plenty of third down runs that converted first downs, especially I think it was a 18, 20-something yard toe tapper on the sideline, like a tightrope sideline thing, even impressed Matt Stinchcomb, who was in the broadcast booth. Plenty of plays like that, plenty of scrambles, plenty of really good clutch throws to move the chains and to get Vandy down in position and scoring position to put the ball across. Gave them plenty of opportunities to kind of just keep Missouri's offense off the field a little bit. Didn't quite do enough because Missouri did win time of possession. They were able to control the ball a little bit better. But when you look at the way Diego Pavia played, I mean, there's a lot to be encouraged by. I mean, Missouri's a great team. I mean, Missouri is ranked 7th in the country for a reason. I mean, they have a ton of talent everywhere. Their defense, they flat get after you. They have some big physical dudes in the middle that run well, and it showed because they limited the run game a little bit, or at least up the middle. They were able to limit what Vandy was able to do on the ground. I mean, this was not a terrible defense that Vandy was going against. This was not some Little Sisters of the Poor directional school, right? This was Missouri. They're a playoff contender, and they're a playoff contender for a reason. They showed why, but Vandy showed why that people should take them seriously. And this is a classic case of Missouri walking in thinking they were just going to roll right through, and they didn't. And so, I think Vandy has a lot to be proud of. Offensively, just as a whole, There was the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good, I thought Diego Pavia was brilliant in this game. He made a lot of great plays, made a lot of things happen within this offense. He led the charge when the team needed him the most. He rallied everybody, got everybody on the same page, got everybody's confidence up. He's the guy that when there's a big play, hey, let's get the next one, right? If it's a good big play, man, he's celebrating like you just did the greatest thing ever. And he's just that guy. I mean, he knows what buttons to press, when to press them. He knows when he needs to be a tough leader. He knows when he needs to be a rah-rah guy. He knows when he needs to bring the juice. He showed and displayed that on Saturday, right? And yeah, he made his share of mistakes. He made his share of poor throws. He made his share of he was ineffective at times. But I mean, that's just kind of normal football. It's just a normal course of play in football. And so, when you kind of evaluate the way he played, man, he brings everybody up around him. So I thought that was brilliant. But the offense as a whole, man, I thought the game plan was good. I thought the execution could have been better. Some of that was that they were going up against a legit defense in Missouri, and Missouri did a great job of limiting what Vandy was able to do in the run game. They were able to clog up the middle enough to be able to string out these runs and force Pavia or force Cedric Alexander or AJ Newberry to go horizontally, slowing them down and giving pursuit time to get there. And they limited yards there. I thought this defense did a good job with pass rush. I thought there were several times where Diego Pavia was rushed in his throw, and they put pressure on him. They hurried throws. They were able to get hits on him and force errant throws. They were able to get incompletions because they were able to collapse the pocket and either flush Diego Pavia and put him on the run, or make him throw under duress. And that probably didn't yield as good of passing stats as they probably could have had, because I thought scheme-wise they did a really good job of getting guys open. I thought they did a really good job of kind of scouting what Missouri's defense struggles with and where the holes could be. It's just some of the execution with the pass pro and some of the execution in the run game just didn't allow them to quite get to all of that. Didn't allow Diego Pavia to get to progressions as much as he'd like to. But overall, man, I thought the game plan was solid. I thought the execution was solid. At times, Missouri just won. They just won these battles up front. Sometimes there was some complete breakdowns, but some, for the most part, it was because Vandy has, not Vandy, but it was because Missouri has better dudes across the front of that defense than Vandy has offensive linemen. And that's just the reality of the situation. Missouri has recruited well, and they've got dudes. And so that's going to happen. Like, those guys are going to win. But, the ugliest part, well, actually, before I get to that, no turnovers. That was amazing, right? There were no turnovers on either side, really, but there were no turnovers offensively. They played a clean game in that regard. They took care of the football. Maybe a couple of turnover-worthy plays, but for the most part, they played extremely clean in that regard. But the penalties are killer, man. The penalties have got to, the stupid penalties. You're going to have some run of the game, execution penalties, or run of the game aggressive penalties, I should say, where you're holding, or you grab a face mask here, but some of the holds weren't great. Some of the the offensive pass interference, I didn't love that. I thought it was a little ticky-tack down there in overtime. That put Vandy back. I think Vandy would have, Clark Lee said he was going to go for it. He wasn't going to kick that field goal in the second overtime, but that offensive pass interference kind of put him in a bind there, where it backed him up 4th and 11 instead of like 4th and 2 or 4th and 3, or 4th and 1 from a little bit tighter inside the 10. So that kind of changed things for Coach Lee a little bit. I don't love that penalty, but I understand why they called it, because he had his arms extended and the defensive back fell stumbled and wasn't able to quote make a play on the ball. So I get why the referee called it. Anytime you see those arms extended, you're gonna get hit for that. I mean, it's just, offensively or defensively out there on the perimeter. If the ball's in the air and your arm is extended and you're making contact with a defender, they're gonna hit you with that call every single time. So, you've got to know that there's techniques to be able to do that without shoving. But then again, on the flip side of that, what if he doesn't touch him? He makes an interception, ball game. So, I mean, I don't love it, but on the other side of the coin there, I don't hate it either because he potentially saved a touchdown. But overall, man, I thought the offensive game plan was great. Diego Pavia was brilliant. The run game was good at times. I just think they need to do, they need to try to gain more of a presence on the inside to be able to get more in the passing game as well, and to be able to get better looks in protection. But the game plan both sides was good. But penalties, big plays, all that stuff. But defense, good, bad, and the ugly. We'll talk about that next. All right, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season big and with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get the hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. So you can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. All right, we are back, man. What do we learn? What do we learn from this? What do we gather from this matchup, man? There's a lot to be taken from this game. There's a lot of positives to be taken from this game. I think people are still upset that they lost, and there's still some people out there that are fire Coach Lee, all that good stuff. But I'm not there yet. Okay, I'm not there, and it's one of those things where it's disappointing. But this game, when you're going through the schedule, this game was already circled as, hey, Missouri's a playoff team. I mean, we have a chance, but this one won't likely go in our favor. It's on the road. It's a playoff team. They're playing for something big. And, this is a game that we want to be competitive in, of course. And, you want to win them all. You want to go 12-0 every year. But realistically looking at it, this was not a game, especially as 20-point underdogs. This was not a game that people expected Vanderbilt to be close in. And for Clark Lee to do this, I think, and I don't believe in moral victories. I really don't. And I think that they had this game in hand, and they let it kind of slip away. But the notion of, this being a typical Vandy loss or whatever, I haven't seen a Vandy team in quite some time go toe-to-toe with a team of that caliber and win. So anyway, but here's a tale of the tape. All right, usually get to this in the first segment, but here's the tale of the tape. Here's what we learned, actually. Okay, because this really pertains more to defense anyway. But I thought the game plan for defense was the right idea. I thought the game plan was solid. I could tell what Vandy was trying to do defensively. I think where Missouri got us, and you can see in the total yards, 442, 216 on the ground, 226 through the air. They were able to limit them through the air to a certain degree. I think big plays kind of plagued that, but it's the rushing yards that get me. Okay. It's the 216 on the rushing yards, but I could see what Vandy was trying to stop, because what Missouri is really good at is the stretch zone. And Nate Noel had a phenomenal game. I don't want to take anything away from him. That dude is a really good running back. He runs hard, runs clean, runs, I think he has great vision and is able to find a crease and just bam, just hit it 100 miles an hour. But what Vandy obviously wanted to stop was the stretch zone. And I thought they did a fine job. I thought they did a great job stopping that play. It was when Missouri countered and started running inside more. They started hitting Vandy with the inside zone, breaking it back to the backside A gap or play side A gap, just kind of right over center. And they were able to get huge yardage right through the middle of the defense because the game plan was let's lock down the edge, force everything inside. And when Missouri tried to run outside zone or stretch, they were met with a lot of white shirts and gold helmets. And then Vandy did exactly what they were supposed to do on most of those plays, turn it back inside to the pursuit. And they did a great job on that play. But what happened was they countered with the inside run, and then with the inside run and even some inside scrambles where the pocket would collapse and it would collapse around him, leaving the middle open, and Brady Cook would step right on through and take off and scramble, or he'd step right on up and fire to Luther Burden crossing, or somebody kind of down low to kind of get the ball moving a little bit. So that's where they were able to chew up a lot of the yards and keep the chains going. That's where their 22 first downs came from. That's where their 442 total yards comes from, and that's how they were able to set up ultimately the big shot play that I think was the final momentum killer for Vandy, where Luther Burden first play of overtime for Missouri. As soon as they touched the ball, boom, over the top answer to Luther Burden, double move. DB had no chance. Luther Burden is a special dude. DB had no chance. It was a really good call, really well timed, great throw, great execution on Missouri's part. Sometimes that happens. There's nothing you can do on that. That's just a phenomenal athlete, phenomenal throw, phenomenal execution on the call. And it's just exactly what Missouri needed to do. And that's why they're ranked 7th in the country. That play right there is a microcosm that defines why they're ranked 7th in the country. But Vanderbilt, man, defensively, they went toe-to-toe. They made plays when they needed to. It was bend, don't break. They forced field goal attempts. They were lucky to get a few misses there. They were able to get a big turnover on downs where they sacked Brady Cook and set up right before halftime field goal from a 57-yard bomb from Brock Taylor, which Brock Taylor had a really rough second half, but that bomb is the longest in school history at 57 yards. So that's good. And the defense did a lot of good things to set up the offense in good situations. Field position, I thought left a lot to be desired, or a little bit to be desired. I thought they could have, maybe if they'd have made a few more stops early, field position could have been more of a factor. But ultimately, bend, don't break, don't give up touchdowns in those scenarios. And I thought Vandy's defense did a really good job for the most part on that. It's just that some of the big plays in the run game where you get gassed, especially up the middle, the big plays to Luther Burden, and some of the special teams, some of the returns weren't great. But overall, I could tell. I mean, for the first time in a long time this season, against Virginia Tech, Alcorn is Alcorn, and against Missouri, I could tell what the defense was trying to do. I could tell what they were trying to take away. I could tell what they wanted Missouri to do. Against Virginia Tech, same thing. I could tell exactly what their game plan was, what they wanted to do, how they wanted to do it, how they wanted to dictate what Virginia Tech did, how they wanted to dictate what Missouri did. Against Georgia State, I saw none of that. That's probably why they lost. But I thought they did a really good job of getting back to their identity, and I thought they executed fairly well in their game plan. Just a few big plays and some penalties, and some stupid penalties really are what kind of plagued them. Not having CJ Taylor in their first half didn't hurt them as much as I thought it would. But then again, he comes in and he's rusty. I don't know. I mean, I don't think that made a difference really. But solid game plan. They played hard. They played extremely hard. They tackled well. And on the perimeter when Luther Burden would get loose or whatever. I thought they were physical. I thought they played hard. They fought hard. They were in it. They were resilient. They were in the right places. And tackling was good at times, bad at times. But this defense was just, when you play an aggressive style of defense, sometimes you're going to get burned, and they did. And what I look for in this defense and how I know that they're making progress. Okay. This is like, if you ask me, if you stop me tomorrow on the street and say, hey, Corey, why do you think Vandy's making progress? How do you know they're making progress defensively? Well, you can tell what they're trying to take away. You can see them going toe to toe with Missouri. You can see Missouri getting frustrated. You could see Missouri getting tired. Like this was a game that Missouri didn't think they were going to be in at that point. Like they thought this thing was going to be 41-7 midway through the third quarter. And walk-ons were probably like, hey, yeah, I'm going to get to play in an SEC game, right? I'm going to get to play not against Northwest South Louisiana State Technical College University. I'm going to actually get to play against an SEC opponent, right? I'm going to warm up, right? I'm going to take warm-ups a little more seriously. I'm going to get a little more juice. I'm going to get in this game, right? My parents are going to see me playing an SEC game. And I guarantee you that's what they were thinking. And Vandy said, man, not so fast. We're coming at you. And they did. And Vandy gave them everything they wanted on the offensive side of the ball. Pavia did his thing defensively. I thought the defense did a really good job trying to stop what they were best at, which they limited Luther Burden as much as they could. And they limited the stretch run, which was great, but they couldn't stop the inside run. They couldn't do that. So that's what ultimately did them in there. Big plays in the run game, the big shot play to Burden, some of the big chunk plays in the passing game that they gave up at crucial times on third downs weren't great either. So, but they had the right idea. They played hard, and I think you're going to see them pull an upset at some point throughout in the season, maybe more than one upset. And it's going to look like it's not an upset because they're going to look like the better team. They're obviously much better coached this year. They have an idea of what they want to do. It's just a matter of now going out there and having the wherewithal to execute it, which when you're 2-10 and completely pitiful and can't execute a simple play or a simple defense, anything is better. But when you're coming from that, I don't think people realize how tough that is, right? And yes, in year 4, probably shouldn't be dealing with those issues in year 4 of your regime. But here we are, and it's turning around. The culture's shifting. And so I'm excited about it. But, culture is one thing, but you got to limit the big plays. You got to limit the penalties. Those are killer for sure. We'll talk more about how those can be limited next. What time is it? Game time. Ooh. Well, did you know Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier? Well, now you do. Gametime Picks, here's what it does. They filter out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets, right? There's 50% off Labor Day offer for the Diamondbacks and Dodgers. Hope you didn't miss that one. But that's amazing there. Gametime Picks, the curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, all that good stuff. All in pricing, man. That's, if you toggle this feature on, this is great because you get no surprise fees at checkout. Shows you the total up front. Seat views, you get panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. This is a wonderful, wonderful feature here. This is my favorite part, man. You get to see what you're going to see. So you get a preview of it, and so you're not buying a terrible ticket. And they have the lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. How about that? Can't beat that. And Gametime ticket coverage you purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Who? All right, welcome back. We are wrapping up the show here in just a few minutes, but would be remiss if I didn't tell you thank you for making Locked On Vandy your first listen every day. Thank you to the everydayers. Make sure you check out Locked On SEC up next. So, man, it was a close game. Had me on the edge of my seat for sure. I came into this thinking, well, I knew they'd bounce back. I knew that they'd play hard, and it would be one of those games where you look at it and you're like, okay, well, Vandy's, it was more of I'm starting to think the Georgia State game was a fluke. We'll see in a couple of weeks when they play Bama, if they play Bama tough. But this is going to be, something that, I think Vandy it's a much needed bye week. First of all, I mean, this bye week couldn't come soon enough. I was so excited for the bye week. I said it was supposed to be this past week, but it's not. It's this week, leading up into Bama. Get healthy, get guys some work, just be kind of ready to roll. So, but among the things that I think need to be cleaned up are the penalties. I think penalties are still a problem. I think this team is still a little bit undisciplined in that regard. I think there needs to be a little bit more emphasis on playing clean, because Vandy can't afford to have a third down conversion that turns into a first down because of a penalty, a late hit or a roughing the passer or hitting somebody out of bounds, or you get a really nice big gainer, big chunk play, and it has to come back because the left tackle was set off the line of scrimmage. Things like that can really kill. That can really kill a drive. So, or really keep a drive alive and really start to kind of kill your defense. But this is one of those things where you have to look at it and say, okay, well, how can we clean this up? The aggressive penalties are going to happen. The holds are going to happen. Pass interference is going to happen. Face mask is going to happen. It's just those are unavoidable. Those things are going to happen. You just got to try to you try your best not to do it in such a backbreaking form, but it's going to happen. It's just the pre-snap stuff, the alignment penalties, the motion penalties, the offsides, some of the more egregious stuff, some of the more egregious penalties, the egregious aggressive penalties, I should say. Those I think you got to work to kind of keep those limited. So. When you I guess when you're practicing things like that, I mean, you have the operation has to be clean. That there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. So, but last thing, man, big plays were a killer. I think big plays were a killer against Georgia State. I think big plays had a potential to derail you against Virginia Tech as well. So when you look at and evaluate big plays, I think. There's a lot of factors that go into it, technique breakdowns, coverage communications defensively, protection breakdowns along the offensive line, not taking care of the football, special teams, not covering well enough and you give up big yardage there. Things like that. Or, sometimes it's on the coaches, bad call here, bad call there. And, next thing you know, big plays cause momentum. And, you get a big play against you on the road, man, that can be trouble. That can really, really be trouble. That's something that that Luther Burden play in the first overtime, that was something I was like, okay, well, that's going to be tough to recover from, because, you work hard to get in the end zone and you're excited and you drive the ball right down, and over time you're feeling good about yourself. You have all this momentum, and all of a sudden one out and up, boom, touchdown. We're tied back up, and you're like, whew, that was quick. And then they had to go right back out there on defense right after that. And so, they were able to get, they were able to hold him to a field goal, which is good. But, then Vandy starts pressing a little bit, like, oh crap, we gotta do this, do that. And, then you get an offensive pass interference. And then, next thing you know, it's, here you are, and your kicker has has missed a kick. So just limit the big plays as best you can defensively. Try to avoid big negative plays offensively and try to win that ratio. There's an important ratio there. We talk about the turnover margin as being the most important ratio. Well, the big play ratio is just as important because you want to be on the right side of that if you want to have a chance to win. So, but all in all, really good game. Really should be a game that is promising for Vandy. They have a chance. They're not dead in the water. I think you fix a few things and you're right there with it, right? Guys fought hard, which that was one of the battles that I was worried about because you lose a game like Georgia State and you have every reason to go in the tank because you're like, our season's done. We lost to Georgia State and, this is not good. And, it's just one of those things where, hey, you come out, you fight, give yourself a chance. And, Missouri had a better team. They had a deeper roster. They had, and they made plays when they had to. They relied on their superstar connection, Brady Cook to Luther Burden. They relied on that and they got it. And that's there's a difference in the game. So, but anyway, lots to be proud of, lots to fix as well. And I think this Vandy train is going to keep rolling. But until next time, we'll see you back here on the Locked On Vandy podcast and the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'll check you back here tomorrow. Peace out. Anchor down.